Hey gang, welcome back to the show. I just wanted to go over this episode with you. I think it's a cool article that's really informative of what big tech is doing right now and what we need to do, to stop the threat to just individual rights. So I just want to thank you for tuning back into the Shibley Show. Please smash that like button, comment, subscribe, please. It definitely helps. Want to keep these videos going and the channel's really growing, so thank you guys for that, and keep tuning in, please. So this article is from the Federalist, and it's titled, "It's Time for Congress to Get Serious About Big Tech's Threats to Individual Rights," and this by Rachel Bovard. Lawmakers have a duty to protect the American way of life. The upcoming hearing with big tech is an opportunity members of Congress can't afford to waste. So this coming Wednesday, the heads of Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Apple will make their way to Capitol Hill to appear before the House Antitrust Subcommittee. For conservatives, the hearing presents an opportunity to question the powerful companies on a host of topics, including allegations of bias. Bias is a serious area of concern with big tech, but it's hardly the only one. And this has been going on for a little bit now. It's become a very serious issue lately, especially with like Twitter and Google have really shown themselves. You can call it bias or whether they're just against conservatives, but they have definitely targeted conservatives. Conservatives have alleged for years that these companies exhibit a bias against conservative point of views, despite the fact that the entities like Facebook and Google constitute a global town square and see themselves as key facilitators of free expression. This allegation has only grown louder as conservative members of Congress were shadow banned. And this is where it's gotten really weird. I think it was like Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, Matt Gaetz. I believe there was one more that I'm forgetting, but they were shadow banned on Twitter. And these are members of Congress. So, it's obviously gone way too far. Numerous platforms have doubled down on censoring even President Trump, which they've been doing, and his supporters, while leaving other accounts acting in similar ways unmolested. Twitter seems to use an internal blacklist while denying they do so, and Google has responded reflexively to mainstream media demands to deplatform conservative news sites, while also appearing to have temporarily suppressed conservative writers in their search results. And that was with that hack the other day. Twitter has a trending topics blacklist, certain things that just won't trend, and it was some pretty weird stuff. Definitely biased against the right. The issue is certainly fair territory for members of Congress to investigate, and tech behemoths should provide far more transparency. But viewpoint bias is just one concern in a sea of others, and conservatives will waste a tremendous opportunity if they focus solely on the issue of bias. Here are some other areas they should use this hearing to examine. So the first one is using market power to crush innovation and competition. One second. In a January field hearing, the Antitrust Subcommittee heard testimony from small tech businesses who recounted in detail how Apple, Facebook, Google, and Amazon were wielding their massive footprints as weapons, allegedly copying smaller competitors' features or tweaking their algorithms in ways that put new companies at a costly disadvantage. Or in the words of Patrick Spence, head of the speaker company Sonos, the platforms leverage dominance in one market to conquer or destroy adjacent markets, especially markets that may one day pose a threat to their dominance. Amazon in particular is dealing with discrepancies between what they told Congress, that they do not use third-party sales data to set prices for Amazon branded products, and what their employees told the Wall Street Journal. Amazon is also facing allegations that they met with startups about investing only to swipe other companies' ideas for their own product lines. Which that's some pretty scary stuff, that they're just going above and beyond to essentially steal ideas from smaller startups for their own products. Google has faced allegations that it self-preferences its search results, demoting non-Google results even when the information contained therein was more relevant to an individual search. The Wall Street Journal reported that Google has altered its search algorithm on behalf of big businesses like eBay while modifying search results for terms like abortion and immigration. That's what's scary too. Modifying search results like abortion and immigration. Obviously, the left's viewpoints. So when someone types that into Google, it's gonna take them to those first couple of results that benefit them in a way, or benefit their point of view. And for most people, they're gonna go to those first couple of search results and they're gonna click on them. That's just what we, with our brains and eyes, like, that's the first thing you see. That's what you're mostly gonna pick. None of this would matter so much if these companies didn't wield such unprecedented amounts of power, but when Google constitutes 92% of worldwide internet searches, 92%. Wow. Unaccountable ways the company decides to filter information has tremendous consequences for business, human behavior, and independent thought. Conservatives are rightly skeptical of government interference in the marketplace, but violations of existing antitrust law in the form of anti-competitive behavior isn't regulation. It's law enforcement. As the supposed champions of small entrepreneurs, conservatives should want to ensure that the field of commerce and innovation is fair and equally accessible. Many on the political right have said for years that people unhappy with social media platforms should just build their own. So shouldn't those same people want to make sure they still can? The threat to individual privacy, and this has always been a big one for me, as an industry that makes money from the commoditization of hyper-individualized data, big tech knows more about us than any industry in human history. Let's think about that. Big tech knows more about any industry in human history. Indeed, big tech's business model is based on knowing where we go physically and virtually, what we say in our emails and text messages, what we buy, and even what our voices sound like. This presents huge policy ramifications around what is ours and what is theirs. Do human beings have a property right to their data trail? Should there be limits on the type of data companies collect, what big tech can do with our data, or who they can share it with? Consider that under a provision of HIPAA, hospital chains have shared the names, dates of birth, and medical histories of up to 50 million Americans with Google without the knowledge or consent of the patients or doctors. Google won't say what they're doing with the data or the data they've recently acquired on 28 million users of Fitbit. In this bizarre legal landscape, Google has a right to your medical record, but you don't. Google has a right to your medical record, but you don't. If that doesn't bother you, I don't know what does. These companies are also serial violators of individual privacy, despite presenting themselves as the opposite. Google reads our emails, Facebook reads our texts, Google still tracks the location of users who turn off geolocation services. The huge uptick in students using G Suite to learn from home during the COVID-19 pandemic has allowed Google to collect a staggering amount of data on children, including internet history and voice recordings. Cynically, the company recently used privacy as a smokescreen to kick competing third-party advertisers off its Chrome browser. Thanks to its acquisition of DoubleClick in 2007, Google also tracks users across the web. After swearing to the Federal Trade Commission that they'd never commingle the data of billions of internet users with the platform data of people using their Google brand services like Gmail, Google Search, YouTube, they quietly did it anyway in 2016 with no consequences. The power that these companies have over individual privacy and data is both unchecked and largely unexplored by Congress, and it's grown far beyond the days of merely opting out. If you're still under the impression that you even can opt out, try it. Big tech's entanglement with China, and they're very involved with China. China is increasingly becoming the chief U.S. antagonist for the 21st century. The trouble is big tech has already made its alliances with Beijing. Apple has outsourced much of its manufacturing there and has a troubling pattern of acquiescing to China's demands on things like privacy and data storage. As Hong Kong residents protested for their freedoms last fall at the request of the Chinese government, Apple quietly removed an app from its store that helped protesters evade police. And they did this quietly, of course. This is These things are happening. They've been happening for the past, I don't know, I guess 5 to 10 years would be the most significant. This is par for the course for Apple, which dutifully pulled 25,000 apps from its Chinese App Store after the Chinese government declared them illegal in 2018. Google was busted by its employees for developing a censored search engine for China's communist government. And while the company won't work with America's Defense Department, it has no problem working with the Chinese military. Isn't that strange? They won't work with the U.S. Defense Department, but they're working with the Chinese military? This is Google we're talking about. In a particularly damning discovery last year, it was revealed that Google, Apple, and Amazon have been facilitating the sale of apps the Chinese government uses to suppress and imprison the country's Muslim population. So Google, Apple, and Amazon are complicit in this while they scream Black Lives Matter all day. Tech companies have also been accused of using the forced labor of persecuted minorities to build their devices, as one tech analyst puts it bluntly to the Senate Judiciary Committee last year. China imprisons and tortures and kills religious minorities and political dissidents, and it's using compliant companies to do this at scale. As China increasingly cracks down on demands to access the data of companies doing business within their borders, the risk for American tech companies doing business in China grows. How these companies intend to secure the privacy of their users, technology, and value is up for debate. So keeping policy apace with big tech's power. The sheer scope of big tech's massive influence and unprecedented power over individuals as well as society is becoming frighteningly clear. Efforts to force this hearing into the frame of private companies versus the government, or appropriate or inappropriate uses of antitrust law, are distractions in the face of what lawmakers should be focused on. Investigating the intersection of innovation and power and discerning what is merely commerce versus what is a collective corporate action to change the nature of a democratic society and a free people. Lawmakers are exactly that. I mean, they're the makers of laws. Their job is to investigate and identify threats to the American way of life as we have determined it, and take the necessary steps to protect it. This hearing presents an opportunity for them to gather data points to that, and they shouldn't waste it. This is such a huge hearing that's coming up Wednesday, because I mean, some of the stuff you just read in there, like the everyday person wouldn't know that. I mean, there was a couple things when I first read it that I didn't know, how Google is complicit in taking off that app for citizens to avoid authorities when they were rounding them up in China. China has been doing this for a long time, and the fact that they won't even work with our Department of Defense, but they work with China. Why should they be allowed to operate at the levels they do here in America? It's absolutely ridiculous, and I'm sure something's gonna change. I think they're taking the right steps to change that, but this'll definitely be a battle to watch, because this is these kind of behind the scenes things like these are what matters. These are the battles that matter, because they're trying to change every little thing of our culture and just destroy our history and just revamp it. It's becoming the big lie. And these companies have been doing this. They're taking your data all the time. That's why I tell people all the time, get a VPN. I use ExpressVPN, because these companies are watching you. They're taking your data. I mean, they're using geolocation. They're using voice recordings, like I read in the article. Google's a big one on that. So I don't know. Just let me know what you think, guys, and have a great day. And just think about this article. This is a big article, and of course that hearing's going to be this Wednesday. So stay tuned. All right, guys. Have a good day.